Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and I have the pleasure of bringing you the newest Safari LTD release. We have the Cryolophosaurus. This, as you can probably already tell, is a 2022 release. This year, Safari LTD has been kind of releasing figures in kind of little batches as we go, as we have had a few figures already. It's very different from the way they normally release figures, and I actually kind of like it this way. I think it's a little bit more exciting and allows for the excitement to continue through the year rather than like some huge excitement early in the year and then we don't really have anything until the next year. Safari LTD again doing it a little differently this year where we get different figures throughout the course of the year, and it's been so cool to do it that way. And this time again we have a brand new figure here with the Cryolophosaurus, which I was extremely excited about. I do want to give a huge shout out and a thank you to Safari LTD for being incredibly cool and sending this figure over here and allowing me the opportunity to get a review up of it very early for you guys. And as you can quite easily see, this is an absolutely gorgeous version of a Cryolophosaurus. I think the entire figure is just so visually stunning. There is a very good chance at this point that this might be my favorite release for the 2022 year. It's going to be really hard for this to beat out their Zool, but if anybody can, I think it would be this Cryolophosaurus. So let's go ahead, jump straight to a closer look at it right now, and see if it can do just that. So starting up here at the head sculpt of our Cryolophosaurus, you can see it looks really nice, and they've done a very good job on top of the fine detail of adding quite a bit of color variation to the face. And you can see here in front of my pointer finger, this is not a large head sculpt at all, but yet they've managed to get quite a bit of coloration here on the head sculpt. They have kind of like a nice off-white that runs around here in the palate area, a beautiful bluish tone up here, as well as some nice variations of browns. And you can see that that off-white comes back again here for the lower jaw. Really nice coloration, really natural coloration, but you can see as far as the skin texture goes in the face, it looks really beautiful. You've got the nostrils sculpted very nicely, as well as the ears back there, and you can see both the ears and nostrils are highlighted with a darker tone of color. Our Cryolophosaurus is sculpted with its mouth in an open position. You can see the teeth there on the inside of the mouth. Look how nice and precisely painted they are. The inside of the mouth has a nice dark purplish tone. You've got the tongue in there. Very nice looking detail, even though the dark tone of color is like a little bit hard to pick up on because it's so dark here on camera, but it looks really good. And you can see again the teeth are all sculpted very nicely, very precise paintwork on the teeth that has zero sloppiness. Honestly, they look really good. Of course, we have that classic crest for the Cryolophosaurus, and you can see that there is some nice texturing within the crest as well. The red stripe there, well, the red, I should say, not just the red stripe, but the red from the crest stripes up here through the top of the head toward the snout of the dinosaur. You can see our eyes here on our Cryolophosaurus are painted with a really nice light blue. We have a black pupil, and they also sport a beautiful gloss coat. You can see there as I let the light hit it, you can kind of see that eye shine on the figure. Same deal over here. That is definitely one really beautiful looking head sculpt for a Cryolophosaurus. And then as you look up here on the top of the head leading back into the neck, you can again see that we have some nice variations of blues. You can see the back of the crest as well has some nice detail, but also sports that bluish tone. And then as you lead down, you have some beautiful texturing to the skin. Nice, very smooth transition from the blue to the brown in the throat region, kind of like some skin folds and stuff, as well as you can make out the throat here on the underside of the Cryolophosaurus. Really nice looking turn to the head of the dinosaur, almost kind of like a curious turn, or maybe like it was walking along and almost looks like it could have potentially been startled, and maybe that's why it has its mouth open, sort of making some sort of a vocalization. Because in my opinion, it doesn't look too much so like it would be hunting or anything. It honestly looks startled if you ask me, but you can again see as we lead down the course of the neck, the paintwork looks really smooth, really naturalistic. As you move down a little further, you can make out the shoulder blade there, quite nicely protruding from the skin. As you move down the arm, you can see some muscle definition that isn't overly defined, so it looks really natural. It doesn't look like it's overly defined at all, like to the point where it would be shrink wrapped. It just looks really good, really realistic. As you move down, you can see that we transition from the blue into a brown, and then kind of like a lighter brown down here on the hands. You can see some nice texturing to the fingers, and then again black nails, which do have a little bit of a glossy look to them, which is also a plus to have that added extra bit of realism. Moving back up into the stomach region, you've got some more skin wrinkles and stuff, especially since this leg is kind of taking a step forward. You can see as it's walking, it would be wrinkling that skin up there in the stomach region. And look at how incredibly smooth the transition is from the blue down into that brown. That is really, really natural as far as that transition goes. And you can also pick up on just how nice the skin texture is here in the stomach region of the dinosaur. And as you move up here through the stomach, you can kind of make out like the bone structure a little bit there underneath the skin, which is really cool to see. As you move back, you've got the hip bone right there, moving down into the thigh. Again, the muscle definition looks really nice in the thigh region, really muscular looking thigh. Same deal with the calf, and again, an incredibly smooth transition from that blue. And it kind of looks like we have almost different shades of blue, but also some slight hints of browns showing up in the bluish areas, which is really, really subtle as far as the way it's applied. This is something that when I mention this kind of transition or change in color, it's something you really need to see in a nice light to actually take notice to. It's so fine. It's honestly really quite impressive how that, again, there's like, I can really see like darker and lighter tones of blue, but it's just so subtle and almost like some hints of browns. I didn't notice it at first, not until just now. It's really neat looking. But again, as we move down the course of the leg, you can see that we transition back to that really, really nice looking light brownish tone. You've got the calf muscle nice big and bulging right there, and you can kind of make out the knee. But as you move down, again, look at that beautiful bird-like foot sculpt. Nice scoots down the toes, down the front of the foot, down into the toes. We have a nice light brown, similar to what we have in the hand. And again, nicely painted nails with a blackish tone of color. But that is just an absolutely beautiful, very bird-like foot sculpt, perfect for a Cryolophosaurus. You can see that we do have dew claws as far as the opposing foot we could see, but we of course have dew claws on both feet. And then as you lead back up, you can kind of see the skin stretching there off of the tail a little bit, again as the leg is taking quite the step forward. And then we transition from that nice bluish tone. You can also see some of that nice whitish tone right there, but we transition to the orange. So we end the dinosaur in such a flashy way with that orangish tone. And it's not the type of color scheme personally I would have ever come up with, but I think that's why I like it so much, because it's a little bit different from your average dinosaur paint scheme, and that's something that, in my opinion, really appeals to me. So I really like that we transition to the orangish tail. And as we lead out into the tail, you can see that we have some very dark blue stripes, and that striping continues the entire way out through the tail. And you can also see as we move, we have like this orangish tone. We transition to a really light, almost like a yellowish tone, before transitioning again to the white on the underside. You can also make out the fact that we have a cloaca present there, but really nice, very majestic looking curve in the tail as well. Especially here, you can see as it comes down very, very nicely, very naturally. And again, just a beautiful pose, I think, for the Cryolophosaurus. The underside as well sports some fantastic texturing and everything throughout. Really nice light coloration. I like how the brown runs down the throat before transitioning to that white there on the underside and the chest region of our Cryolophosaurus. And then you can see on the opposing side, again, the dinosaur is looking away from us because something clearly has caught the attention of the Cryolophosaurus off to its left. So you can kind of see how like the skin is stretching, like there's absolutely no creasing or wrinkling or anything over here at all. Again, just really showing off the turn in the neck right there, and yet again some super smooth transitions between colors. As we lead down here, you can see the arm is in a slightly different position over here compared to what we saw on the initial side, but it looks pretty much exactly the same as far as the really precise paintwork, and again the absolutely gorgeous looking sculpt, really nicely painted nails yet again. And then we can see a little bit more of the stomach region over here, since the dinosaur's leg is trailing quite far, honestly, over here. So you've got a lot more of the stomach that's kind of opened up over here for us to see. You've got some nice skin wrinkling, again, the kind of skin stretching off of the stomach as that leg is trailing quite far, but you could see lots of really nice skin wrinkles and stuff. And again, that incredibly smooth transition from the blue to the brown. I really love the paintwork of this figure, not just the tones, but the way it's been applied. And again, really nice texture texturing throughout. You can see that texturing continue as we move back here into the thigh. You yet again have the hip bone up there, some nice skin wrinkling up there at the top of the thigh, again showing the movement as the dinosaur walks along, nice bend in the knee. Again, the calf muscle is flexing, and you can see how these toes are picking up off of the ground as the dinosaur walks along. You've got the toes kind of spread apart, and again, very bird-like appearance to the foot sculpt of our Cryolophosaurus. And then we lead back up here. You can again see the skin kind of stretching between the thigh and then the tail right there as we lead out into that absolutely majestic looking tail with that incredibly flashy coloration that we have out there with the orangish tones as well as that nice striping. So, man, is this ever a gorgeous figure. I was previously stating that the Zool was my favorite for this year, for the 2022 year, and I don't know if I can continue to say that, honestly. I think this Cryolophosaurus might overtake the Zool for me. It is just an absolutely beautiful looking version of a Cryolophosaurus. Definitely my favorite Cryolophosaurus in my collection currently. There is no doubt about it. This thing is just, as I said earlier, just so visually stunning. Look at that coloration. I really love the colors of this figure. But definitely another fantastic release from Safari LTD. As far as balance goes as well, you can see the dinosaur stands perfectly, even though the tail is in a position where it could tap and touch to help it balance out. It actually does not. The tail, although leaning down, is positioned up off of the ground, so the, again, figure stands really nicely, balances perfectly for me. And what's good about this is I've actually had the figure now for a few weeks, and you sometimes wonder if, when I review a figure straight out of the packaging, it may stand really nicely at first, but kind of warp over time and then stop standing. Whereas, again, this one I've had for, a few weeks now. So this is definitely still standing really nicely, which shows the fact that this is definitely going to continue to stand into the future. But as far as a size goes, for a length, you were looking at probably about, I would say about 7 3/4 inches, or around 19.5 centimeters, maybe closing in on 20 centimeters in length. And then for a height, I would say about the 3-inch range, or just shy of 8 centimeters. But for a size comparison, we've got a nice wide shot here as we have the Safari LTD 2022 Cryolophosaurus next to the Safari LTD Utyrannus, which is probably one of my favorite Safari LTD figures of all time. And you can definitely see that size-wise, they are a very similar size. They are really not far off from each other. But for another comparison, there is the Safari LTD Feathered Tyrannosaurus Rex, the Dino Dana version, which is the newest version of that figure to be released, next to the Cryolophosaurus. And you can see that obviously there is a huge size difference between these two figures, but I felt like this Rex was one that was really popular from Safari LTD, so it was a great one to bring in for a comparison. And then again, when it comes to very popular Safari LTD releases, we have their Diplodocus here as well, next to our Cryolophosaurus, again showing you that the Diplodocus really quite easily outsizes it, but then again, it is a Diplodocus, it should do that. And then for a comparison next to some more of the 2022 releases, we have the Albertosaurus as well as the Zool that I was just mentioning next to our Cryolophosaurus. And you can see that, again, there's a little bit of a size difference between the Albertosaurus, which again you would expect there to be, and the Cryolophosaurus, but the Zool, although a very different type of dinosaur, like lengthwise and body mass-wise, that's not too far off from the Cryolophosaurus. And then the comparison that I personally wanted to see the most, we have the older version of the Cryolophosaurus from Safari LTD next to the current version of the Cryolophosaurus. And you can see that both of these are beautiful versions of a Cryolophosaurus, and they honestly look really cool together. Like, I feel like these ones would be two really neat figures to kind of have displayed next to each other, like especially right here, because you can kind of see how the older version has its head turned to the right, but the newer version has its head turned toward the left. So it's almost like it would potentially be like a pair of Cryolophosaurus that maybe just entered a clearing and they're both kind of checking things out to see exactly what's going on. Really cool to see the two of these figures together, that's for sure. So this brand new 2022 Safari LTD Cryolophosaurus is yet another incredibly beautiful release from Safari for this year. This figure is, and it's really hard for me to say this, but I think it's my favorite one so far for this year. It really just blew me away when I opened the packaging and had taken a look at it. And again, the incredibly nice looking sculpt, but also that beautiful coloration that we have for the figure. I love how it's just so flashy out there on the tail, but the majority of the body body is kind of like darker tones for the most part, like with the darker blue, and then the kind of, even though it's a light brown, it's still sort of a darker tone of brown through the lower part of the dinosaur. But then once you reach that tail, it's like party time out there, as we have that really flashy orangish tone with the light underbelly and then that nice dark blue striping that runs the course of the tail, just adding in so much flashiness out there for the back of the tail of the dinosaur. And actually, like, you don't always want theropods and things of that nature to have those flashy colors, because you think, well, could the dinosaur ambush prey, and could it hide with a coloration like that? And I feel like this is actually kind of perfect for this type of dinosaur, because if the Cryolophosaurus were kind of hiding in the bushes or something and just waiting to lunge out and grab something, odds are the tail would be pretty far back, so you wouldn't really see the tail very much. If the dinosaur were hiding in the bushes, you would kind of see more of like the front part of the dinosaur. And since it's, fairly darker tones for that area, like, it really works perfectly, in my opinion, for a dinosaur like this, to really give it that nice naturalistic look with a nice element of flashiness as well. I really love this sculpt. I love the pose for the figure as well. I like the nice walking pose, and the fact that, again, it kind of has its head turned to the left, and the mouth is open, clearly letting out some sort of a vocalization. It doesn't look like it's kind of in mid-battle or anything like that. It doesn't look like it's hunting to me. Other people might take it a different way, but personally, I don't think it looks like it's doing that. It kind of looks like it was just maybe caught off guard, surprised by something. Maybe it was walking along, heard a noise, and it startled it. Maybe it's just kind of letting out some sort of a vocalization to let it know that it's not happy about that. And I really do like that as well. I love when I can look at a model like this and kind of take away something from it. Like, it's not just a generic pose that is like, oh, well, it's just a dinosaur yelling or something like that. Like, it looks like it has life to it. It looks like it has almost a story to it, and I really like that as well. The size is also very nice, as it's not very large, it's not very small. It's kind of like a perfect size, especially for a dinosaur that you could like add onto your desk at work or something, or even just, again, in a situation like me where I have so many figures, it's nice to get a figure that's like this, because it fits into my collection very easily, doesn't take up too much room. So it's, again, a very nicely sized, very conveniently sized Cryolophosaurus figure. So it's got a gorgeous sculpt, beautiful, very nice, precise paintwork, and again, as a whole, one of the most visually stunning Cryolophosaurus figures I've ever seen. So if you are interested in picking this up, make sure you keep checking back to the Safari LTD website, so when this comes into stock, you can grab it right away. And I want to remind you guys that I have a discount code from Safari LTD to get yourself an incredibly cool discount on anything you order on their website. You can get a 15% off discount by entering the code Andy at checkout. So make sure you do that. Make sure you grab this Cryolophosaurus when it comes into stock. I will include a link in the description to the Safari LTD website, so you can do all of that stuff. Again, thank you so much to Safari LTD for allowing me the opportunity to get a review up of this so early, and make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.